So today is day 2 of the induction program with the governor-elect and returning governors, an exercise meant to prepare the state leaders for the task of governing the federating units. At that event today, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation was speaking on behalf of the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, who was supposed to address the gathering today, and he was asking them areas they need to focus on as leaders of their different states. Take a listen to him.
Your Excellencies, apart from the necessity of focus on the fundamental development challenges I mentioned above, it is imperative to unleash the potentials that lie in our youth. It's no longer news that over 75% of our population is under the age of 35. More decisive actions are needed to turn this demographic asset into an economic dividend. A young, productive, youthful population with access to education, skills, social protection, affordable housing, and Medicare will power Nigeria's economy now and well into the future. We must move away from so-called youth empowerment programs that do not add any value. The youth do not need handouts. They need investments that will propel them to wealth creators.
That's the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa. Let's focus our attention now to the task of governing, because the governors they're coming together and they are brainstorming, thinking about the best ways to handle the affairs of state. I'm being joined tonight by one of the governors-elect. This time around is one of those who defeated a sitting political power, an incumbent party, to becoming a governor-elect this time around in Plateau State, Mr. Mutfwang. Thank you so much indeed for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Sean. Good evening, viewers.
Appreciate it. How ready are you?
I'm ready.
You asked for the job, isn't it?
I asked for it. Like they say, uneasy lies the head that wears the crown. Since the declaration, we've been thinking, strategizing, and putting our plans together. The weight of the assignment is beginning to dawn, and but we asked for it, and we have to give it a go.
Are you up to the task?
By God's grace, we are.
What gives you the impression that a state like Plateau, you have the capacity to run the affairs?
I come in with empathy. My trajectory has been one that has prepared me for service. I have been a people-oriented person all my life, and I have been able to be in a position to bear the burdens of people. And therefore, I think nothing prepares you in life than to know that people know that they can trust you, that you will be there for them. And we've come at this point in my life, I am not looking at anything other than the opportunity to serve humanity.
And your people in Plateau State, we need a lot of the empathy.
Sure.
And more than the empathy, the emotions will not work as much as possible. That might be an initial effort that they will need because of the pains they are going through. They will need a lot of proactive action, which I assume that you probably are thinking about. If not, then there is a lot of problem. Because we understand that just today, there was a curfew that was declared in a local government due to an attack. It looks like a reprisal, but these are commonplace in your state of Plateau. Do you have an idea of what the problem is?
Yes, thank you. Unfortunately, Sean, sadly enough, it's my local government. A lot of the people that are being killed are my people, even though everybody on the plateau are my people. But certainly, we knew all along that this was not going to be a walk in the park. This was not going to be an easy task, and by the grace of God, we are determined. One of the things we promised our people when we were campaigning is that we are going to demonstrate leadership. And by that I mean we're going to take some very tough decisions. We're going to look into the issues dispassionately, and we're going to be able to confront the issues and come up with solutions. Of course, I do not have a magic wand, but by the grace of God, and together with the people, we're going to think through our issues and be able to come up with homegrown solutions to the challenges that confront us. But we're going to give leadership. We're going to show the people that we have the political will to take the decisions that are necessary to move the state forward.
What is the problem, really? I mean, you were a former local government chairman.
Yeah.
So you are a grassroots man in a lot of sense.
That's right.
We'll go into the governance of local government and that disparity that we see in the development in the rural areas and in the urban areas. But then you understand the problem because you have been there as a local government chair.
Absolutely.
Why the killing? You said they've been killing your people in your area. Who are these people?
Fine. What has happened today, yesterday into today, it will be an injustice to the people that were killed to call it a clash or reprisal. This is pure genocide. And I want to address it from the criminal angle of it, because one of the things we promise our people again when we come into government is that we're going to be strong on the rule of law. It doesn't matter whoever commits crime, irrespective of where you belong, will have to deal with it headlong. So
when you say genocide,
yes.
Genocide is a deliberate attempt in clearing out a group of people.
Absolutely.
So who are these people planning genocide on your people? Because this is a very strong language.
Very well. I can tell you that there's been a lot of banditry around the plateau. It didn't start today. It's been going on for years. And a lot of communities today have been wiped out. I can tell you that the last count we had about 64 communities that have been displaced completely.
In your state alone?
In my state alone. Yesterday,
and they are displaced, they no longer exist in those communities.
Absolutely. They are now in IDP camps. I had the privilege yesterday at the Governor's Induction Forum to talk with Her Excellency, the Deputy General Secretary of the United Nations, and I told her, look, the IDPs you're focusing on in the Northeast do not only exist there, they also exist in the North Central, and you need to turn your attention to the IDPs in the North Central. We have quite a number of them. They have been in camps for years. We need to escalate that conversation so that these people can go back to their ancestral lands.
So you need to explain to us who are the people behind this genocidal act like you've described it.
Yeah.
Who are these people?
Well, at this point in time, you know, I need to be careful because I'm not the chief executive of the state. There's a sitting government, and I would want to respect the government in power to be able to disseminate the right information. I do not have yet authority to be able to disclose a lot of security issues at the moment because the rightful person to receive and disclose them is the governor on seat. So let me respect that. But I can assure you that these people are people that were brought in from outside those communities, outside the state. I do not have exact details to give you at the moment, but all the years down the line, a lot of the identities have been revealed that these are not Nigerians. And they have been brought in as foreign mercenaries, and they overrun these territories. Sometimes, of course, it is difficult to disabuse the minds of people that it is not in collusion with some of the people that are resident in those communities, within or around those communities. But largely, there's a large influx of foreigners who are not resident in the state per se. What they do a lot of the times, they come in and attack, and they go back to wherever they came from. So it's difficult to really be able to place identities.
What could be their target? What could be their reason? What is their grievance? What exactly is their purpose of wanting to clean out a group of people?
The purpose of those who perpetrate the attack may just be because they are mercenaries and hirelings. I want to ask, who is the person who is sponsoring them? Who is instigating them? What is his aim? And you want to look at it sometimes, it's difficult to disabuse your mind that this is not about land grabbing. You know, if the communities that have been displaced, as I'm talking to you now, it's not as if they've been left vacant. Some people are occupying them. And so it's difficult not to begin to ask those questions. What is the motive of these invaders or the sponsors of the invaders? And we think it has a lot to do with land grabbing. It has a lot to do with demarketing of the state. Because again, I can tell you that the security situation on the Plateau has not been the worst in the north, but there's been a lot of demarketing of the Plateau. And sometimes I find it quite deliberate and a lot of skewed narratives that try to make people to be scared of coming into Plateau. But the truth is, yes, there have been attacks, but perhaps not even as bad as you have in Kaduna State. But you find that businesses are still thriving in Kaduna, while a lot of people have the perception that Jos, for example, is a no-go area, which is not true.
But do you think that this has any kind of ethnic or religious connotation?
Of course, you have to look at it from a multifaceted dimension. There is a lot of economic benefits people start to gain, because even criminality itself has an economic dividend. You have to look at it from the political point of view to try to subjugate. I do not want to celebrate religion because I do not think that those who maim and kill, they only use religion as a pretext. But it's not that they want to advance their religion. A lot of the times when people are looking for political oxygen, you find that they now fan these embers of hatred around religion and ethnicity to be able to find space within the polity. But I don't want to glorify it with those. But certainly what we are seeing is that there is a deliberate plan to be able to dislocate the people and then to be able to take over the land for other purposes.
I mean, if there was any place in Nigeria that Europeans are very much in love with, tourists who want to go to Jos, because a lot of things, I mean, perhaps is in that place I think I first ate my, the first, what's the name of these lovely fruits that I first ate in Nigeria. I mean, I ate it only once outside of Nigeria, but it was the first time I ate it. I remember the name, just skipped my mind. The berries, I mean, fresh, lovely. And I'm wondering also how suddenly Plateau State turned into a place that had become so badly dealt with in terms of insecurity. And you have promised that you will return those who are in the IDP camps to their ancestral lands and homes. How soon do you plan to do that, and how do you hope to achieve that?
Thank you, Shaun. You know, Plateau has been christened the home of peace and tourism, and it's not far from reality. Our biggest asset on the Plateau, I believe, is our climate, which is God-given, apart from the natural resources in the ground. And the weather is clement for medical tourism. It's clement even for hospitality, and so on and so forth. Now, like I said, there has been a deliberate plan over the years, it would appear, to be able to demarket Jos, for example. And but what we are going to be doing in the course of the days is to engage the populace, engage the citizenry, engage the media to be able to situate our real situation as it is, that Plateau is still a destination for everybody. You can still come to Plateau, and you can still live on the Plateau, and you can still thrive on the Plateau. But the issue of IDPs particularly is not going to be just, there's no magic wand about it. It's going to be a multi-stakeholder approach to resolving the issue so that the people can return to their ancestral lands. It's difficult to place time frames, but we want to get to work as soon as we get sworn in. and see how we can bring all the critical stakeholders to the discussion table and see what are the issues that we need to tackle in order to move forward.
How soon do you think this can be? Do you have a timeline for which you want your people to get back to their ancestral lands?
Oh, as soon as yesterday, if it were possible. But I can't place a timeline on this.
But what are the mechanisms do you hope to be able to put in place to make this happen?
Yes. We're going to create a standing committee that will handle this issue. So far, it has been an ad hoc approach, but we're going to have a standing, robust desk that will handle this issue, and we're going to engage the security agencies, we're going to engage the international development partners, we're going to engage the communities that surround those communities and see how we can have a multi-stakeholder approach to discussing all the issues. My hope is that from swearing in and before the year runs out, we would have gained significant mileage in this direction.
There is a talk about focusing on what matters to the people, and I don't want to be going into the statistics of the number of poor people, out-of-school children in the northern Nigeria. Yeah. And I see that you're already even making moves in looking at appointment. Looks so much that you are ready to get into office and hit the ground running. One of the papers that were presented today was by the governor of Lagos State, who was talking about hitting the ground running. But the question now is hitting the ground running. The issue of poverty is there. The boss Mustafa has said, do not focus on these editorial and just reducing governance to and out. What in real sense, how do you hope to take your people out of poverty? There is a huge number of people who cannot even feed. The last figure released by the NBSA is multidimensionally 153 million people are in abject poverty in this country. Absolutely.
And interestingly, Plateau is about number 26 on that index. And so we really have a good share of the poverty situation. Yes, Sherwood, what we need to do as soon as we get sworn in is to come up with pragmatic and practical steps that will ensure that the people trust us, that we are going to be able to walk the talk. Of course, what do we need to address those issues beyond handouts? One of the key, apart from dealing with the security challenges, which would allow our people to go back to the farms and to engage in meaningful economic activity. Of course, one of the key economic activities which would drive our economy is agriculture. And over the years, due to the insurgency, there has been a decline in productivity in that sector. We want to be able to address that drift and make sure that people can go back to their farms. And of course, as they go back to their farms, we need to also empower them. I believe in the philosophy that it is better to teach a man how to fish than giving him handouts of fish to eat. So if we get our people back to the farms, we give them the necessary implements to farm, the necessary support to farm, both in terms of subsidized fertilizer, in the other farming inputs, that we can be able to be sure that at the end of the farming season, people can feed themselves. So food security is a key target for us. And our aim is that every family on the plateau, by the grace of God, in the next 4 years, should be able to feed themselves.
How do you hope to achieve that? What would be your major target point? What would be the crop that you are focusing on? In terms of the crop, the farming, the agricultural part of it, in terms of the production of that crop into food item, how do you hope to transmute that into the food on the table?
Beautiful. We need to immediately get into looking at our farming methods. We need to progressively improve on our farming methods.
Are you going to buy mechanized farming tools for them?
Already we have some bit of it that we need to make more operational. We had the ASTC program, which is a service farm that aggregates farming implements which farmers can access. At the last count I know, we have about 300 tractors on ground, which is not to be given to individuals. Farmers can come, rent, and be able to farm. But beyond that, we want to be able to see if we can leverage on our schools of mechanical agriculture to get us implements that will improve our farming methods. Now, that is very key, especially to attracting youth back to the farms. And we need to also be able to deploy technology. We're talking about greenhouse farming, for example, today. The opportunities to do a lot of that on the plateau is very vast.
Okay, so I asked that question because there was a time that Kebbi State and Lagos State had a partnership to produce the lake rice. There was a time when Bukola Saraki in Kwara State got a partnership with Zimbabwe farmers, and they got a very huge expanse of land for farming. And I understand at that time there was a WAPCO that goes there to take milk, raw milk from the cows. There were those cows that were brought in from South Africa or so by the Zimbabwean farmers. And that is a scheme that was generating revenue for a state. Same with Lagos, same with Kebbi State. And when we wonder, the kind of template that worked in places like the United States, where you have federating unit, will go into revenue-generating endeavors where they can actually make money for the state. I mean, governments have not really been a very profitable business entity.
I agree with you.
So they usually provide the environment for private sector. So in that sense, and that was why I was asking, for the crop you want to focus on. Now, what crop goes better in Plateau? What are you planning to possibly even export out of Plateau, out of Nigeria?
Before we talk about export, Sheun, I told you about food security. We need to feed ourselves first. It is when we feed ourselves that we can release the energy for export.
So what crop are you focusing on?
Plateau feeds Nigeria with almost 90% of the potatoes, Irish potatoes you eat. We want to be able to maximize that crop.
Are you going to partner with private sector?
Absolutely.
Have you identified any company in that?
Our vehicle for governance is PPP. We want to be able to engage the private sector. Today, I can tell you, we have some large pieces of farm. We had the defunct back farms, which the present government bought back. We're already talking with a number of companies that want to reinvest. And we also had the famous Bokos Farm project, which unfortunately today is part of the area where there's a lot of insurgency. We need to retake that back and put it to good use. Now, I told you about the ASTC, which is a farming service company, which is a limited liability company that the state government entered into partnership with some Israelis. Now, it has not functioned well in the last couple of years. We need to be able to bring it back to as a functional going concern so that the private sector will have a vehicle to get engaged in agriculture. So we're going to improve farming methods. We're going to look at how to expand the value chain. We're going to look at a lot of ingredients, transit also from small-scale farming holdings to cooperatives, and eventually that we can be able to have large mechanized farms.
All right. On a final note, there is, I mean, you've been in government at the local government level. Just briefly, and perhaps 60 seconds because we're out of time now, if you can tell us, because, I mean, there is a history of a former governor of Plateau State that was jailed for allegedly mismanaging the funds of the state to the tune of about $9 million US, and eventually he was being pardoned. So there is this feeling that those who become governor eventually steal the monies of the state. Can you give the people of Plateau State the assurance that Caleb Mutfwang is not the kind of person that will steal their money, but will work for them?
Thank you, Sheun. I can tell Plateau people with all confidence under God, my conscience is clear, and I am determined by the grace of God to come into government clean and live clean. I'm going to ensure that we get value for money, and that I'm going to ensure that we keep watch over the commonwealth that our people have entrusted into our care. By the grace of God, my appetite for greed has been trimmed, and I can assure you that I'm not going there for stealing. I am only going there to make sure that Plateau works again.
Will you look into the books of the government that is outgoing?
Oh, we'll do the normal things. We'll do the normal course of business.
If you
of
find
government.
Anybody wanting?
We would certainly will call him to order.
Order or?
We'll call him to account.
Okay.
We'll call him to account.
Caleb Mutfwang, Governor-elect of Plateau City. Indeed, it's a pleasure talking to you tonight, and I hope that as soon as you get on the ground and things are moving, we would like to have a conversation about the people of Plateau State and how far you've gone with your work. Thank you so much.
It will be my honor and pleasure.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure having you.
Thank you.